What happens when you've built your entire identity around your work? And what happens when something changes, like a layoff, a pivot, a season of life that asks of you more than your job ever could? Well, my guest today has the antidote, and it might just change the way you think about work entirely.
Highly ambitious people really do find fulfillment through their career, right? It is an expression of what they love and what they're good at and how they add value to the world, and they're proud of that, as they should be. I think the challenge becomes you would almost like shrink your identity over time as you kind of carved off all these other elements of who you were. We are so much more than how we monetize our time. Finally, one night, I was just like, you know what? I'm a human Venn diagram. And the investor, he looks at me and he goes, okay, interdisciplinary, tell me more. I hate the idea of work-life balance because it puts them in opposition to each other. This is not a fight for resources. Your work is part of your life. So if you find yourself burning out, it's likely because if you looked at your portfolio, you have left 0% for rest, 0% for growth or creativity or community. You have given it all over to these other things.
Welcome to In Confidence, where what we share in confidence helps us grow in confidence. This season, we are solving your top problems, and we're continuing that on by solving a very important one you've asked of us, which is, how do I stop letting my career define me? And I invited a dear friend, we've been friends for almost 20 years, Christina Wallace, to come and solve this problem with us. Now, let me introduce Christina. She is a self-described human Venn diagram. That's a really cool way to describe what you are, and she's going to talk a lot about what that means. Christina is a senior lecturer of entrepreneurial management at Harvard Business School, a serial entrepreneur who has built businesses in e-commerce, ed tech, media, a four-time Tony Award nominated Broadway co-producer, an angel investor, and the author of The Portfolio Life: How to Future-Proof Your Career, Avoid Burnout, and Build a Life Bigger Than Your Business Card. She started her career at the Metropolitan Opera, got her MBA from Harvard, and has spent years since proving that you don't have to pick one thing. Let's listen in. Christina, welcome to In Confidence.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we did the math. We've been friends for 13 years?
Something like that.
And literally, you were one of the first people to buy a product from us.
I still have that skirt.
Yay!
And I wear it all the time.
It holds up.
I've also gained and then lost multiples of tens of pounds, and it has fit through all of my different chapters.
It's a well-designed product. Thank you for honoring that. Well, I'm so grateful that you decided that you could come to New York and film in our studio. We're going to get started with two of our signature questions we ask every guest. Okay. The first is, what are you proudest of from the past 12 months of your life?
Oh, my Lord. Honestly, I think I am proudest of getting my kids into their new school and getting up and running and creating all of these great rituals and habits. It's been a big transition year for our family, and doing that at the same time that I am teaching more, writing more, speaking more. My career has in no way slowed down, but have been able to be there and support my larger sort of family commitments, which was the entire design of me becoming a professor for this chapter of my life, because I knew I was going to need that. So it's very reassuring that it came true.
Well, you're going to give us all the tips on how to accomplish that today.
I promise.
And you have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And from everything you've told me, your 6-year-old, she will be interning for me in 2038.
Probably in 2 years, honestly. She is unhelpfully smart. And every time I try to complain about it, my mother's like, you deserve that.
I'm convinced there's no bias actually in that statement. I'm convinced she is smarter than all of us. Now, for those of our audience who don't know who you are, how do you make a difference in the world? Tell us all the kind of components of your life journey to date.
So I still say, I start with my introduction. I am a human Venn diagram, and I have built my career at the intersection of business, technology, and the arts. And that one-liner has been true for 2 decades. How I exactly monetize my time has changed pretty dramatically throughout that period. So right now I am a professor at Harvard Business School, where I teach entrepreneurship and marketing and operations, both to MBAs and to executives. I'm also a Broadway co-producer. That's why I'm in New York right now. I've got a show opening tonight. And that becomes a really big part of how I get to express my artistic side. And then I'm an angel investor. I'm an author. I'm a mom and a wife, and just sort of have my fingers in a lot of different pies. But fundamentally, it is that portfolio approach to my life that I've always had that ended up becoming my latest book, because everyone else was like, that seems like a really interesting approach. How do you pull it off?
Why I'm so excited that you're here today. Well, first of all, we've crossed paths as entrepreneurs, we've crossed paths as friends. And as we shared with you, this season is all about solving people's problems.
Yes.
And one of the problems that people voted on is, how do I stop letting my career define me? And when I thought about it, I was like, well, first of all, I need Christina. I think I text messaged you or emailed you or DM'd you. I was like, Christina's perfect for this. And also because I never went to business school, so I have Harvard Business School envy. And I told Claire on our team, I said, I want an HBS professor to answer this question. So today, our audience are your students. And I want to start off with the first question, because you're going to solve this problem for our audience. So many ambitious people have built their entire sense of self around their career.
Yes.
Why do people do this? Why is this a trap that we fall into, and how do we step out of it?
Yeah, so this is, first off, everyone does this. So it's not even just like in the Western world. I now speak all over the world. I've been in China and India and Europe, and everywhere people are like, yeah, I do that too. So I started to feel better that it's not just like the American capitalism system that is destroying us. No, so it is in two parts. One, because highly ambitious people really do find fulfillment through their career, right? It is an expression of what they love and what they're good at and how they add value to the world. And they're proud of that, as they should be. So it is a meaningful part of their identity. I think the challenge becomes, especially in the old way of building careers, sort of pre-AI, pre-pandemic, in our parents' and our grandparents' generation, where it was much more linear, you would set out on this path and your job would provide this piece of your identity. And then as you rose through the ranks, that would just calcify, in part just out of the fact that it just kept going, right? Like it just was what it always was, and therefore never got disrupted. And so you would almost like shrink your identity over time as you kind of carved off all these other elements of who you were in high school and college, and your hobbies sort of get put on a shelf and your other interests, and you just shrink into this one thing. And it's really, I think, limiting to everyone. I sometimes look at the ability of previous generations to build that linear career with like empathy for how small that world must have felt, even if they did get the stability of the financial side of it. Because we are so much more than how we monetize our time. And so part of the challenge is what replaces that. It's a really easy one-liner. You go to a dinner party, you go to a networking event, people say, who are you? And it's so easy to just say your job. And there are all these connotations that come with it. Maybe there's prestige. Maybe there's a clear, oh, I understand your supply chain. That tells me something about you. Or, oh, consulting, right? I now can, qualify all these things into a very neat package and very quickly feel like I know who you are and we can move forward from there. So if we're going to replace our jobs as our identity, we have to have something else. And that's where it gets tricky. You say, I'm so many more things, but how do I fill in that blank?
Okay, it's like you're speaking to my soul, because as you know, I spent over a decade at McKinsey, and McKinsey defined me. Like when you tell people, I work at McKinsey and Company. Oh, I know exactly your status. I know where to place you. And you had a sense of, like, it was like a badge of honor. Like, okay, I belong here. And when I started my own company, I told people I'm in fashion. They're like, oh, did your dad give you the money? Like, it's sort of like this demeaning thing. Yeah. And I found myself at dinner parties when I kind of let go of the McKinsey moniker, to be like, I own a small business. We do really cool things. I make a difference in the world. I help people feel really good about themselves. It was sort of a different way to answer the question. Like, don't let that define. I also love BTS and I love hip hop dancing. There's so many other things. Yes. And I love the way you started the answer, which is I'm a Venn diagram of tech, entrepreneurship, the arts, that felt so much richer to me than I'm a professor at Harvard Business School. I'm also a best-selling author and I'm a keynote speaker.
Exactly.
That felt so much more interesting and rich to me.
Yes. So this framing, the Venn diagram, actually came out in 2011 when I was first fundraising for my first startup. So also in the fashion space during that era of direct to consumer, the very beginning of that boom. And I was going to all of these investor meetups and these pitch moments, and you really get like 45 seconds to give them the framing of should they keep talking to you. And so I'm trying, I got a lot of chances to try out different answers because I wasn't very successful at the beginning of this. And I was trying to answer this like, oh, well, if I give you my whole resume, I'm going to have to talk really fast for 45 seconds with no breath. And I'm going to come out looking like a dilettante. Like, well, I double majored in math and theater, and I triple minored in physics, music, and political science. And I actually trained as a classical pianist for 15 years and almost went to Juilliard. But at the last second decided I didn't want to go to conservatory, and then had to decide, do I go into math or do I go into the arts? And I moved to New York. And that's when I discovered the business side of the arts at the Metropolitan Opera. And that led me to business school. And I thought I was going to stay in the arts. But the financial crisis hit and there were no jobs. And that's the point when entrepreneurship came along. And here I am now fundraising. You're like,
take a deep breath.
Okay, I'm going to excuse myself and go talk to someone else, right? Like, that's not going to work. But if I don't give you all that context, if I say, well, I'm just a recent HBS grad and I'm fundraising for my D2C startup. You're kind of like, cool, you and 20 other people. And so I was trying all these different approaches because what I really wanted, the question I wanted to answer for them, which was not the question they were asking, is why you for this startup? Right? We know the key questions in any entrepreneurship, why you, why now, is it big enough? And so they're saying, tell me about you, but what they really want to know is, are you the most obvious person to build this opportunity that you're going after? Because that's what's going to continue the conversation. And so I got to workshop all of these different approaches to try to make it clear why I was the most obvious founder for this company. And finally, and I will admit there was some wine involved because that's how all the best ideas come about. Finally, one night, I was just like, you know what? I'm a human Venn diagram. And the investor, he sort of stops. He looks at me and he goes, okay, interdisciplinary, tell me more. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's almost like a meta answer because even just telling you I'm a human Venn diagram also tells you that I'm a math nerd, right? Like I've already framed the subtext, tells you I'm smart. And the text tells you I'm interesting. And now we can have a further conversation. And that's when I was like, oh, well, business, technology, and the arts and sort of that intersection. And then it gives you that framing of what do I see when I walk into a room and what do I offer that is unique? So if I step into a business room, I have these artistic relationships and this network and this training of storytelling and of creativity that a lot of people in that room don't have. But if I step into a technology room, I'm like, listen, I understand this. I studied computer science. I can write code. But what I also understand is how the business model has to work and how we can set this up so that it is sustainable and not just a cool product, right? In every room, I get to be the outsider. And that positioning is why I'm going to be the person to back. And that was really when his eyes lit up. And then this was the real key thing. He introduced me to someone the next day over email. And he repeated that line. She's a human Venn diagram. And I was like, oh, this is the magic of a great story is when it can be repeated by the person who heard it.
Oh, I love. Okay, so let's help our audience if they fall into that trap of defining themselves by their job title or what they do. How do you help them answer the question differently if they don't want their career to define them?
I got you. So there are two approaches to sort of excavating who you are beyond your job. Because the more successful you are, probably the harder it is if you like stare at a blank piece of paper and you're like, who am I?
I know. I got nothing else going on.
I got nothing, And you're like, okay, calm down. So the first way is to have that blank piece of paper and a couple of prompting questions to help you kind of go back and sift through all of these different versions of yourself and try to pull out some of those things. So those questions are, what am I currently doing? And I don't mean your job title. right? I don't want the overarching title. I want to know, like, are you like crisis management? Are you able to get people who are not obligated to do something to actually do something, right? Are you great at divas? Are you managing numbers to the point where you can make them sing?
We have people
right?
take our superpowers quiz.
Exactly.
So it's like, what are my superpowers?
What are your superpowers? And what are the ones you're using today, right? Then the next question is, well, what else have you done? Because there's different parts of us that show up today, and then there are parts that maybe we've just put aside for a little bit. You're still those parts. You're just not using them right now. So we excavate. What else have you done? And I tell you to go all the way back to, like, what was your summer job in high school?
I love
that.
Like,
Did you teach toddlers how to swim and you kept your cool relevant, right? So list all of these things. Then we get into, what do you nerd out about? Like, if we are on hour 6 of a snow delay at O'Hare Airport, like, what are we talking about at this point, right? So we get to pull out, oh, actually, I nerd out about New York real estate. I don't own any, I'm not gonna sell any, but, like, I can tell you the floor plans at the Dakota, right? So we get into that. And then the fourth thing is, like, what are you known for? Or what were you known for back when you were fun, right? Yeah. So we get to pull this out. And then you take all of these elements, imagine each of these answers you're putting on, like, sticky notes. And then you try to group them by theme. And you start to see, like, oh, I'm a coach. I am an educator. I am a storyteller. I am a systems thinker. And you can start seeing, and you're like, oh, well, this actually represents both. Great, that's the intersection. And now you can surface what are these circles in your Venn diagram.
Yeah.
So that's one way in. You do it with yourself. And I really encourage you to, like, actually find a partner who's also doing this.
Okay.
Because it's so much easier to solve someone else's problems than your own. So you can look at theirs and you're like, oh, this makes a ton of sense. Group them this way. And they're like, oh, I would have never seen that. So find a buddy. The other way, though, is if you're like, I still don't see anything except a vice president of engineering. Fine. The other way is you go and you talk to the people who know and love you.
Oh, I love that.
So I did this after my first amazing, wonderful startup, Quincy Apparel, failed. And I had no money. And I was like, who's going to hire me? I'm nobody. So I went out and I emailed everyone I knew. I probably did 70 coffee chats in 30 days. That's too much. You don't need that much coffee. Like 12 is enough. But you go in and talk to people who've known you through different seasons of your life. And I asked them 3 questions. When have you seen me happiest? Ooh. What do you come to me for? Like, what is that moment you're like, I should see what Christina thinks about this? And where do I stand out against my peers? Like, what do I maybe peek at that I don't even realize because I'm so good at it and it just naturally comes? And you get their feedback on this. You tell them ahead of time, we're going to talk about me for 30 minutes, right? So you're priming them. And, you know, I made them pay for the coffee, but you could treat if you wanted. And you get all of their answers. You don't take any one answer as gospel, but you get all their feedback. And then again, you can sort of find the themes. It's like customer discovery. It's the exact same thing we do when we're about to launch a new product or look at a new opportunity. You go talk to people. And as you pull out these themes, you can start to see, like, I am happiest when I'm in charge of my calendar. I am a storyteller. I'm someone who can find the narrative arc, whether that's launching a new product or helping someone reposition their career or just going out there and, like, giving the team a pep talk, right? So you start to see, like, these are the things that make me me. And none of that has to do with the line that's on your LinkedIn.
Oh, I love that. Well, as you were talking, I was trying to do the approach in real time.
Yeah, okay.
And let me try out mine.
Yeah, please.
So I always tell people I'm the world's best positivity mirror.
I love that.
Well, my mission statement is I catalyze confidence.
Okay.
Like, not just as a career, but just in my life.
Okay.
And I see the best in people and I reflect it back on them. And I'm radically generous in helping them achieve their potential.
I love that.
And it's not about, like, I can tell you I run a company and blah, blah, blah. And we have this podcast, but that's not who I really am. I am the world's best positivity mirror.
And what I love about that framing is then I go back and I look at every single element of your career and I'm like, yeah, that's consistent.
I help people. Yes.
That's consistent. You make a beautiful fashion line that makes women feel super confident and they get to show up and feel like themselves in this environment where if they were trying on some costume of corporateness would prevent them from being their best self. And instead they get to show up in second skin and show off that confidence. And that's what empower,
Thank you, Christina. I want to take your class. I'm coming to Cambridge to take your class.
I love that framing because then you can say, well, if I'm looking for all of the different ways that I could be that person, you have so much optionality. Like the world could get turned upside down and there's still going to be a need for reflecting back confidence. And that could be in fashion, it could be in media, it could be in coaching, it could be in consulting, it could be in building an AI version of you. I don't know. But in all of, you're like, I'm not stuck against the wall because the tech stack has changed. Or because interest rates have moved. I still can be me and I'm just going to monetize it differently.
I love that. Okay, I've already learned so much and I'm going to be using that as my new calling card.
Beautiful.
I hope people repeat that. Please repeat that, Christina, in an email. You say in your book, Portfolio Life, that, and by the way, I love that book. It it came at the right time. And I think everyone during the pandemic was looking for that way to describe all the ways their life was fragmenting and putting it back together. You say pouring yourself into a single job is the riskiest move you can make. That kind of goes against everything most of us are taught. So what does that mean?
So I have always had more than one source of income. My entire working life. I grew up working class in Michigan, and then I went into my first life as a theater artist, as a musician. You never just have one source of income. That your life is precarious. And so you have to have a lot of different irons in the fire. And so that's where a lot of this started. I was thinking about it from a financial point of view. But then as I really sort of unpacked how else that has shown up for me, it came from a couple of places. During my first startup, I was all in. That was the only time in my life I had one source of income. And that company fell apart. And now, granted, I was at the helm and I could see that coming, but think about how many other people whose lives are upended because of layoffs or because we've decided that, the work should be done by AI instead of people, or because the company fell apart overnight and you thought you were being loyal. You thought you were building expertise, that you were invaluable to this company. And it turns out loyalty is a one-way door in the corporate world. And there's no one who is invaluable. Everyone is replaceable. So building that one-way relationship helps zero people, except maybe the shareholders. So that's short-sighted. But then there's also this element of, well, who am I? And will that change? Right? You are going to go through these seasons of life where your priorities change, your interests change, who you are might be dramatically reinvented. And if you have only done one thing for seasons and seasons, and then you hit this moment, that's why we call them the midlife crises. This is not an irrational moment. This is wow, I'm a different person than I was, but my entire world has been constructed for that version of me. And the only way that I can see the ability to change is to blow it up.
Interesting.
And so if you think about how you allocate you, it's not just about have a side hustle. It is about, as you look at that 100% of your portfolio, how are you distributing your time, your talents, your energy across these different assets, these different outlets? Some of it will be professional. Some of it might be hobbies. It might be a community, could be your family, it could be your health. And if any one of them falls apart, you are not 100% allocated so that your entire world doesn't implode overnight.
I love that reframing because I get it. You can be dedicated to your job. You're taking me back. Where were you in 2009 for me? when I was at McKinsey for over a decade, I tied so much of my self-worth and identity to being a McKinsey partner.
Of course.
That was 100% of who I was. And one of my mentors said, the firm will never love you back as much as you love it. So love it a little less.
Yeah.
And when I didn't make partner again and again over 6 years, I tied myself up in knots because that external validation mattered so much to me. And another mentor said, this brass ring that you're going for, it's really not worth it.
Yeah.
What else do you want to do? And in 2010, when I was thinking about leaving, I picked my head up for the first time and I was like, I could be COO at this luxury brand. They offered me a job. I could go and do this on my own. And it was the first time in 10 years that I hadn't been so consumed with my identity being so closely tied to that firm.
Yeah.
And as you're talking right now, I really wish we could go back in time to 30-year-old Lisa and you could shake her a little bit.
I know.
So that makes sense. So it's not about, it's not that I shouldn't be dedicated to my job.
Of course.
It's that it's not the only thing I have in my life.
That's exactly
and
right.
that job could be taken away from me or I could decide not to want it anymore.
Both things can be true. I often, during the initial launch of the book, there's someone had to play devil's advocate. And they're like, don't you want, your neurosurgeon to be focused? Like, do you really want them to have a side hustle? And I say, honestly, I don't have a neurosurgeon, but let's imagine I do. I do want her to have a side hustle. I want her to have a hobby. I want her to have a family because the day that she wakes up and says, you know what, I really don't want to do this anymore, is the day I want her to stop doing it.
That's true.
Like, I don't want her to be like, well, but if I stopped, I have no friends, I have no identity, I have no reason to get out of bed. No. And then she'll cut into brains for another 10, 20, 30 years. Like, imagine if all of Congress had a hobby, right? We would have a very different face of governance.
Okay, this makes sense to me because Dr. Levine I had foot surgery a few years ago. Shout out to Dr. Levine at HSS. He's the happiest doctor I've ever met.
There you go.
And he's a marathoner, and I donated to his marathon, and he's humorous. And I think it's because he has I follow him on Instagram. Yeah. He has a very full life outside of fixing people's feet.
Yes.
So, okay, I love that. And so you've just answered the next question, which is a portfolio life isn't just having a side hustle or a hobby. No. It's a whole mindset.
It's a mindset that says your work has to be in the context of your life. First of all, this is why I hate the idea of work-life balance, because it puts them in opposition to each other. This is not a fight for resources. Your work is part of your life. And as you think about all of the things in your life, you can't allocate more than 100%. So if you find yourself burning out, it's likely because if you looked at your portfolio, you have left 0% for rest, 0% for growth or creativity or community. You have given it all over to these other things. And so part of what you have to recognize is like, I have needs that are not being met. And I can pare back. Maybe I'm going from 70 to 65% here to carve out time for 5%. For the things that I need that are not being met. And it allows you to say, I don't need my job to be everything.
Yeah.
In the same way, your romantic partner doesn't have to be your therapist and your best friend and your life coach and your sexual, bestie. No, like, you can have other people in your life. It's the same with your work. Your work can meet some of your needs and help you achieve some of your goals. And you can find that fulfillment and meet those other needs that are not being met through other avenues. And the only magic is that it has to add up to 100%.
Okay. Well, and again, you're just making me think about all these things. Again, I want to take your class. So the other thing I would add to my description is I'm a very curious person. I love to learn. I think this is why I was such a great student. And my boyfriend is Korean and his parents do not speak English well. They live in New Jersey. They run a seafood market.
Amazing.
And on his mother's birthday, I promised I would learn Korean. I love Korean dramas. I love BTS. I'm Army forever. And so I started taking Korean class. Like, I have an online tutor twice a week. And I'm so happy. I've had a month of lessons and I feel so accomplished.
Yes.
Like, in the world, it's not even just a hobby or side hustle. I just feel like my brain is moving outside of my spreadsheets and my emails.
And this is what keeps your brain plastic into old age. Like, I just started doing Chinese on Duolingo.
这么好，我们可以说中文。
我是美国人。
哦，真棒。
Because I've been teaching in Shenzhen. I just got invited to speak in Beijing this summer. And I was like, this is becoming a big part of my career. I got to learn how to do it. And my 6-year-old, the too smart one, goes, I want to do that. So now we're doing Duolingo together, and we've got like friend challenges, and she's catching up to me.
Okay, I'm going to give you the link to my awesome online tutor service, which is based in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Ooh,
Shout out to Preply. I love them. Now, a lot of high achieving people worry that building a life outside of work means they're less committed or less ambitious. What do you say to that?
Okay. First off, I'm highly ambitious. No one who meets me would be like, she's not ambitious. But I've said this for my entire life, my ambition is not reserved for my career.
Got it.
I am ambitious for my marriage. Like, I care deeply that I have a relationship with my husband that will survive parenthood.
I saw you shoveling snow together. That was marriage goals. He shoveled your car clear, right? Or somebody did.
I shoveled his car
Okay,
clear.
all right. That is right. Marriage goals. Okay.
Thank you. I have ambition for my family, for my relationships to my kids. I have ambition for my health. I'm 42. You can't take it for granted the way that you could at 22. I have ambition in all of these dimensions of my life. It doesn't mean I only get to be ambitious at work.
I love that.
First off, your ambition should not be reserved for your work. But secondly, though, like, two things can be true. I am still ambitious at work. And I find that, you know that saying that like you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with? This is true from a financial habits perspective. It's true from a working out and eating, sort of all of these things. It's also true from an ambition perspective. If you're around people doing cool things, who are constantly challenging themselves, who are reading or learning or traveling or trying stuff, you will be inspired to do that too. So if you work with people who are ambitious at work and you have that motivation, you will stay ambitious there, whether or not you make sure to sleep 7 hours a night, whether or not you go and get your blood tests done, or you pick up a language, or you decide that like being part of a faith community matters to you, right? That doesn't detract from you being amazing. And I would argue, and certainly my research from all of these case studies I did for the book seems to confirm this, that actually turning that part of your brain off and entering into other spaces where there is excellence and creativity and new ideas makes you better at that thing. If you are all in all the time, that deterioration of your productivity is real. And so stepping away from that, gaining new ideas, getting exposure to other things actually refuels you to go back and have something to say.
All right, Christina.
Yes.
So tomorrow, what are 2 to 3 things someone can do to start building an identity that is bigger than their job title?
Okay. Step 1, find time in your calendar to sit down with yourself for a couple of hours. Give yourself that space, right? You can't do this in 15-minute increments. You have to have that ability to like quiet the buzz and reflect. So you're going to carve out some of that time and you're going to step into it with this clear intention. I'm going to use these 2 hours to be self-indulgent. It feels so self-indulgent. And then you're like, oh wait, I would never blame anyone else for doing this. So like, why am I beating myself up? And you're gonna do this exercise. You're gonna go through these 4 questions. You're gonna write your little details, and then you're gonna find a buddy, and you're going to share sort of the stories underneath the bullet points, and you're going to sort of craft this first iteration of your human Venn diagram.
As a world's best positivity mirror, my friends can come to me. I can be your thought partner on this. Yes.
So you're going to craft this first draft, and then you're going to like put it away and sit on it for a week. You're going to pull it back out, and you're going to look at it and say, does that reflect all of me? Does that feel like me? And you're probably going to say like, no, I think I'm missing this, or like, I might have overstated how much that mattered to me. There's always these moments when I do them with my coaching clients where they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I was also a finalist for the Olympics in figure skating 20 years ago. And you're like, did you not think that was relevant? And they're like, well, it was 20 years ago. I was like, if you were a finalist in the Olympics for literally any length of time, that is a part of who you are.
Yeah, the discipline, the commitment, the performance.
The artistry,
yeah.
all of it. So there are always these moments where you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I also got a master's degree in anthropology just for fun, you know? So it takes some time to pull out, and you're gonna then adjust it. You'll sit with it, you'll put it away, you bring it. This might take a couple of instances, but at some point you're gonna look at it and be like, yeah, that's a reflection of me. That's my portrait in mathematical form. That is step one.
Okay.
This is going to take a couple of iterations. But your Venn diagram is who you are. Your portfolio is what you are doing right now. So everyone has a de facto portfolio. This is step two. First, you got to figure out like, what is my portfolio today? You can sort of map it out what you think it is. Go do a time audit.
Yes.
Look at your calendar and be like, oh, I forgot to carve out 5% for TikTok scrolling,
Netflix
right?
chill.
Correct.
Yes.
So you want to see, am I actually spending my time the way I think I am? And if not, what adjustments might I want to make? And then there's sort of the reach goal of what would I love my portfolio to look like? What is that sort of version? And what would it take for me to make some of these? Sometimes these are really small adjustments where you just have to have a conversation. Maybe go to your boss and you say like, I love what I'm doing here, but I'm not really growing anymore. I'm sort of on autopilot. There's this other thing I've been really interested in learning about. Is there any opportunity for me to moonlight in this at my job, right? Is there a growth? Is there a stretch assignment? Is there a cross-functional blah, blah, blah? So you can make these little tweaks. And then step three, which, you know, it's going to take you a couple iterations, is to figure out what you wish for your life.
Okay.
I love this term wish. I use it. I borrowed it from the internet. I did not invent this word, but I love this word wish rather than goals. Because any high achieving person can like meet goals they don't care about. You're like, I got the medal. Okay, what's next? Wishes give you a sense for like, what do I want my life to be? I say like the imprint of your life, right? And I give you the charge of writing down 100 wishes because the first 30 are going to be easy. They're all probably work related. The next 30, you're just going to start making shit up because you're like, I got to get to 100 because we're all good students. And then at about 62 is when you're finally honest with yourself about things that you haven't actually said out loud that matter to you.
Okay.
This is the moment, like 62 for me, when I did this for the first time 10 years ago, was I want to win a Tony Award. And this was surprising because at that moment, I had left the professional theater world 10 years prior and had been doing nothing that would get me anywhere close to winning a Tony Award in any context. And this was the moment that I was like, oh, I'm not done with theater. I have no idea how or when or under what path I will get there. But like, that's really important that I recognize this.
And you're producing a Broadway show.
I know. I have 4 Tony nominations.
Yay!
I don't have an award yet, but we're on that path. But it was the easiest yes in the world when that opportunity came out of nowhere, like 5 years later. It was like yes. Obviously yes, because I already know that this matters to me. And your wishes don't have to be huge. They don't have to be Tony Awards and Olympics. I have a wish that says I want to be able to pick up my grandkids when I'm 80. Right? To do that, I have to do strength training when I'm 40. I have to go to my physicals and eat the green things and like actually pay attention if that is something I care deeply about. So as you're putting together these wishes, the only rule is you can't edit yourself. You don't get to write something down and say, oh, that's not realistic.
Okay. All right, Christina, I'm going to do all 3 steps.
Okay, good.
I am.
Good.
Because as you were talking, I was like reallocating my time, doing my wishes. I haven't done that in a long time, probably in a decade. So I'm going to do it.
Your time is not only meant to meet your needs.
Yeah.
Right? That's sort of the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Your time also has to help you build this life you want.
Yeah. One of my girlfriends texted me. She's like, we're going to do Smart Girl Saturday this weekend. We're going to sit on my dock in our swimsuits and we're going to watch Coursera classes on AI. And I was like, I actually want to do that. Because I was just, as you were doing portfolio, I was like, I want to reallocate some time to learning this thing that scares me a little bit.
Yes.
Like I love this exercise. I'm going to do it. Well, Christina, thank you for coming on In Confidence. I'm so grateful to be reconnected.
This has been marvelous.
For every episode this season, I'm giving you a power move, something you can try right away, inspired by this episode. And today's power move is write down all your wishes. And if you take Christina's advice, you need to write down 100 wishes and continue writing until you get to 100. I love that idea because in her example, she got to 62 and it was be involved in Broadway. And now she is a Tony Award nominated Broadway co-producer. So I want you to dream big, write down anything that comes up. Don't stop. And the only rule is you're not going to edit yourself at all. If the wish comes through or it happens, then leave it on your list because all of these wishes reveal something about you. In closing, I'm going to close out with our gravitas shoutout, which is all about growth deserves to be seen, ownership deserves to be named, and the people doing the work deserve to be celebrated. So I want to give today's shout out to Christina Wallace. First of all, I would want to take her class at Harvard Business School. I literally told her I want to come and audit the class or be involved in it somehow because she is an incredible teacher. She's built a career that doesn't fit in a box, wrote the book to help the rest of us do the same. And I want you all to go pick up a copy of The Portfolio Life wherever books are sold. We're going to include the link to it in the show notes. I hope you're leaving this space stronger than the way you entered it. If you love this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, review, because all of that recognition creates a ripple effect and amplifies our work. And until next time, in the words of my 9-year-old self, I see you, I value you, and I believe in you. This is In Confidence.